Good morning, everyone. Sorry, good afternoon, everyone, should I say. Thank you for coming along to this webinar. Before we start the webinar, I'm just going to go through a few things to point out how the system works, etc. So first of all, if you look at the panel at the side of your screen, you will see that there is a little red arrow. That's for if you want to hide the control panel. But if you're wanting to use some of the sections of this, I'll just point out what they are first of all. So I'm going to actually start at the end now and just say, when we do finish the webinar, if rather than just clicking across and leaving, if you could please click onto File at the top here. When you go in there, then that will take you to a survey just to ask you your opinion of how things have gone, but also to give you the opportunity to ask for particular things, etc. So please, if you would go to that when you do leave the webinar, we'd really appreciate that. So that's that first of all. And then if we look down here at the panel, when you are moving down, if you go down to almost the bottom where it says handouts, if you click on that, you will see that there is one handout. That's a copy of the slides today. That's in a PDF format. And I know some people have said that they found that the link that's on there doesn't work because it's in a PDF. What I will do at the tomorrow, after the webinar is completed, I will send everybody a copy of the slides and a copy of the links so that you know that all of those work. Okay, so that's where you get the handouts from. And then if you do want to ask us some questions as we're going through, if you click on the section that says questions, you can just type in a question there and then we will respond to it. What we're going to do, rather than interrupt the webinar, is we will take all of the questions at the end of the session and we will read aloud all of those questions that we think are pertinent to everyone. And that way, it may well be that somebody's asked a question that you haven't thought of, but you'll then find out the answer to that. So that's that one. And then final one that I need to tell you about is attendees. So if we look at the attendee section on here, you will see that your name is there and then there are a number of things across here. Everybody, first of all, I should say, is muted, and we do that because when there's a lot of people on, it can make the system go a bit strange if too many people trying to speak at once. So we keep you muted, but you can ask a question if you go into that questions bit, and then it will appear in the question box here. So I will see that you've got a question. And if you do want to raise our attention, you can click in this little bit underneath raised hand. So just first of all, if we can see if everybody can hear me clearly, if you could just click in that section underneath the hand, and then I can see that all of you are able to hear us. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. Thank you. Right, just give me a moment. I see that a few people have clicked. There's a couple of you that still haven't clicked to confirm. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to assume that everybody is able to hear and that we're going to go ahead, because otherwise we will run late to time. So my role is National Lead for Character Education at SLQ. My name is Maria Hober. I will be doing slides slightly later in the session, but to begin with the session, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Lucy Substone, who's going to take through the first few slides. So I'll hand straight over to you, Lucy. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria, and welcome everyone, and thanks for taking the time to come along to this webinar. I hope everyone is healthy and well and ready to really tackle how we can support young people moving forward, and in particular young people on how they can actually engage with education and look at their skills development whilst they're actually at home learning or are a key worker or vulnerable young person. So with the presentation, we're actually going to be looking at how we can tackle the confidence crisis for young people. One of the biggest problems we see happening is actually how we re-engage young people back into education, and especially this will be a particular issue for young people who are from disadvantaged backgrounds. And so as an organisation, SLQ have developed a new programme which is called I Can, I Am, and it is related specifically to the current situation and how you can develop skills and actually get these young people to engage in the community of education moving forward and become community builders. Next slide, please, Maria. Thank you. So at SLQ, we have always actually listened to young people and used the youth voice to identify what we can do to help young people realise their potential. And there was nothing different once we'd actually heard what was going to happen with schools closing, colleges closing, etc., and education organisations being turned upside down. So what we actually did was we spoke to young people, and through Insight and other organisations, we actually listened to what they were saying, how they were feeling about the current situation. So Beano Studios, they have done some insight and been talking to a panel of 2,000 young people about how they're actually feeling. And one of the biggest things that we could see from this is that by week 3 of lockdown, young people, their biggest emotion was anxiety and worry. So 44% of them were feeling that they were worried and anxious about what was going to happen moving forwards. The other feeling they had is a feeling of helplessness. They actually feel as if they can't help what is going on. They don't know what to do and what the future holds for them with the current crisis. And unsurprisingly, we're starting to find that as we move through the weeks of lockdown, that boredom is on the rise, and this can actually cause other issues with mental health issues and mental resilience moving forwards. So the journey that young people have been on so far is possibly they might have started with an initial excitement that the fact that there was change and that schools were closing and it was unknown and what was happening, that was what was being reported back to Beano Studios. But once they'd actually settled into it and realised that it did mean lockdown and that they were possibly within a home situation that wasn't where they wanted to be all the time, they couldn't socialise as they were before, etc., that has quickly turned to worry and boredom, and actually they're now wanting to contribute and to start re-engaging and engage back and make a community back for them to come back to as soon as that is possible. Next slide, please. So one of the other area that we looked at was looking at research, and as we've never been in a situation like this, we have got unprecedented times, as is said by many people. We actually have found that the only thing we can look at that relates to this is learning loss. And we have a 6-week period within the UK every year, the summer learning loss, and a lot of research has been carried out on that. And one of the areas of research in particular is what happens to the attainment gap in that situation. So alongside the attainment gap widening during the 6-week period of interruption to learning, it's also been found that 50% of young people, after only 6 weeks of not being in school or an education setting, they actually are anxious to return to school, and 50% of them do not want to return to school. Now, we're obviously in a situation at the moment that we don't know how long this is going to last for. So this could be a period of more than 6 weeks. It could be up to a period of 24 weeks if the majority of our young people are not returning until September. We don't actually know what the effect of that could be. That's the only thing we can relate to in this country with interrupted learning loss. However, moving forwards and looking at what else could happen with a longer period, I actually turned to looking abroad and looking in particular at America. America obviously has natural disasters that happen regularly, and Harvard University have done a lot of research looking at interruption to education for sustained periods of time and what that causes. The research in 1996, it actually was looking at a hurricane and a 3-week learning loss, found that the majority of young people, when returning to education, they showed toxic stress. Now, toxic stress is a response of anxiety that causes them not to be able to engage back into education as effectively as they were previously. So the research had actually found that not only did that happen in an immediate effect, but it also lasted for up to 5 years after that, which is obviously a massive concern for us. All of this sounds very negative at the moment. However, we did find from the research that the toxic stress could be reduced if you can deploy a resilience education program quickly after the event. Hence the reason that we have developed over the last 6 weeks a resilience education program that can be implemented for young people in this country for them to respond to the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please, Maria. So what we are seeing it as is that this is a period that is going to cause some mental well-being issues and a crisis possibly for 14 to 18-year-olds. We know that around 3.6 million 14 to 18-year-olds are going to be affected by this alone, and it's during a critical stage in their life, and some of the polls are actually saying that they feel as if they're hardest hit with all the different things that have been taken away from them, that being social areas as well as exams and study, etc. All of this has impacted them hard. We know that this could well last for 4 times longer than the usual summer holidays, so that is going to have an impact, and unfortunately the issue is likely to be multiplied for children from poorer backgrounds and for individuals that haven't got access to the support at home that they would get at school. We also understand that actually one of the key things is actually to give those young people a purpose moving forward, but by providing them with a community builders opportunity that will empower the young people and help with their mental resilience moving forwards. It will also help the community and their education community to actually adapt and re-socialise to the new normal post-lockdown. So this learning programme that we have developed is actually preparing those young people to be a part of the solution, and so that they can build their community moving forwards. And we know that teachers and tutors are always key influences within any young person's situation, and so we are also trying to support teachers and tutors to move forward and to understand what barriers there are for engaging these young people, and we hope to overcome those by providing them with support as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. So one of the things that we've found through the research and by talking to different bodies within education is that curriculum interruption can actually be minimised if the programme can meet some of the curriculum requirements that are already in place. So what we have tried to do and what we've managed to do is to link the curriculum to give clear purpose for the young person. And what we actually have been looking at is that I Can I Am focusing on personal development of the young person, and in particular actually linking it to the character education agenda and the curriculum areas of that. But I Can I Am has actually been developed to evidence several of the character education benchmarks, and here's a few in particular. We have actually got a document that will help to evidence this for schools and colleges moving forward as well. So in particular, benchmark C can be evidence, which is looking at how the curriculum actually teaches resilience and confidence. The programme is about gaining resilience and confidence for that young person. Benchmark E, how well do you promote the value of volunteering and service to others? As part of the programme, they will be asked to make a pledge of social action volunteering that they will do post completing the programme, and that will be back within the schools by becoming a community builder. So that could be volunteering to help with transition of year 6 into year 7. It could be by setting up lunchtime clubs, discussion clubs, sports clubs, or anything like that, and it is supporting and promoting the value of volunteering. And finally, benchmark F, how do they actually ensure that the pupils benefit equally from what they offer? This is something that we are making available not only through online learning, but it can be downloaded and printed off, so that for those individuals that cannot access online learning, it can be done through a paper version as well, and that obviously can be delivered, as schools are at the moment, through the post or actually onto doorsteps of young people, obviously abiding by social distancing. Next slide, please, Maria. So the key thing for the programme is obviously to help build mental resilience alongside that social action output. But there are six smaller outputs that have been woven within the programme as it's delivered. First of all, it's about improving the confidence of the young people and actually building their character. It's also about giving them a sense of empowerment and helping themselves and helping their community. As I previously said, there is a feeling of helplessness of the young people, and so by giving them that empowerment to go and help themselves, that should be something that will help with their mental resilience moving forward. It's also giving them challenge, so it's challenging them to, in their own learning, to build new skills and to use those within the current climate and within the future norms that will come about. It gives them a sense of achievement. As an awarding organisation, we have also produced an award that they will get at the end of the learning programme, and an accredited award. But I think one of the most important outputs for this is actually we're creating a movement of the young people to become the community builders, and in particular to give them a sense of community that they can use in the future and can actually implement back into their education settings when they return to whatever the new normal will be. Next slide, please, Maria. So the programme itself has been built on 4 pillars of learning. So the theory behind it is that, first of all, the first pillar is about supporting teachers and tutors, and then pillars 2, 3 and 4 is about taking the learner through the different processes for them to build their skills and for them to be able to implement this in the future. So the first pillar is about teachers or tutors being able to lead. We've developed a CPD module for teachers and tutors that actually looks at them as key influencers to deliver a resilience education programme, and what barriers there could be and how to overcome those to engage as many young people as possible. For the young people themselves, it is taking them through 3 further learning pillars. So first of all, they will go through an I Can Learn learning pillar, where they learn about and get knowledge about skills that they can use and how they can use those moving forward. They then go through an I Can Build pillar, which is about the young person carrying out activities and making decisions on how they can act and can actually carry out activities such as social interactions in the current lockdown situation. And then finally, it's actually reflecting back on what skills they've built and how they can use that in the future to help them to progress, or can help them to actually carry out their pledge that they make as part of the programme. All of this is carried out through bite-sized activities that Maria will take you through as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please, Maria. The programme itself is actually built on our skills framework, which has been developed by ourselves and Youth Employment UK over the last 2 years. The framework breaks down what skills employers in particular, but also life skills that young people will require for them to be able to progress in the future. Through research, it has been found that 5 key skills are required by employers to enable young people to work and to move on to further opportunities. These have been broken down into communication, self-belief, teamwork, self-management, problem solving. This framework is available for anybody to use. It's available on our website, so please help yourself to go and have a look at that in future, and can be implemented in any education setting to show how you are working towards developing skills in young people. Next slide, please, Maria. So the first pillar, as I said before, is about a CPD module for teachers, and it's about teachers being able to lead and implementing a resilience education programme. It's an online learning module that's interactive, that you are able to put as many of your tutors or teachers through as you would like. How it is set up is that there's 4 sections. The first section looking at COVID-19 and what we can learn from it and how we can adapt what we are doing at the moment. Section 2 is about how we re-engage pupils with education and what are the barriers and how we can overcome them. Section 3 is about resilience education programmes themselves and how they're implemented and what makes a good resilience education programme. And then section 4 is about delivering the resilience education programmes, and in particular related to I Can, I Am. And I think that's over to you, Maria.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so as Lucy said, what I'm going to do now is talk you through a little bit more detail about the programme, about how it works, how it's structured, have a look at some of the actual session plans, and then talk about how you would access it, etc. So first of all, I'm going to do a bit of an overview of the programme. So first of all, the programme is has an introduction for learners, then it has 10 90-minute sessions, which are shown on this screen, and then there is a review session that the students will complete. So each of the personal skills, if you remember that framework that Lucy was showing you before, there are across that there are 5 key skills, and each of those skills has 2 sessions dedicated to the development of those skills. And on this particular slide, you can see that where they are matching colours, that means that they relate to the same skill. So each session works towards developing a skill, and by completing the session, the student will gain a behaviour badge. When they've completed all 10 of the sessions, they will achieve a Community Builder Award, which is an accredited learning award. And then when they have completed those, the idea is that they then complete and pledge for 10 hours of community building, and that will be something that may well take place as they're going through the award, or it may be that has to be something that's delayed because of circumstances about being able to access materials and take part in activities, but that student will then get a recognition award for achieving those 10 hours of community building. So the content within each session is themed around the current crisis, and it asks the young person to go through 3 learning pillars. So the I can lead, I can build, and I can thrive that were referred to on slide 6 earlier when Lucy was going through it. And all of the sessions will be released from the 1st of May, that's tomorrow, and there will be 2 sessions released each week. So the way that you can do this is you could do 2 sessions a week, or you could just do 1 a week. It's entirely up to you how you organise it. We're just releasing 2 a week so that you have 2 ready if you wanted to go through 2 a week. So let's have a look at the actual the different boxes here and what's happening in each week. So in week 1, it's about staying connected. So this looks at effective communication with others during the crisis. And then we have staying motivated, which is about planning your future by owning the present. Then moving into week 2, we release thinking differently, which is about creative learning within a crisis, and strength in teams. So overcoming isolation to work as a team. Then in week 3, we'll release raising resilience, which is about staying strong and recovering from the COVID-19 crisis, and building confidence, which is about celebrating your strengths through recognising your achievements. Then moving into week 4, we release respecting communities, which is about promoting positive behaviour in the community and supporting others, which is all around standing together through times of crisis. And then week 5, we release understanding others, which is about being aware of the needs of others whilst the crisis is happening. And positive actions section is about making your pledge to impact the future, thinking how you move forward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through some of these. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to go through 5 of these and look at in a little bit more detail what it is that's involved for each one. So I'm going to start first of all by looking at staying connected, which is part of the communication personal skill. Within the communication skill, we have staying connected and we have understanding others. So for this first one, I'm going to take you through each of the categories on here and explain what they mean and how they relate to what's being asked of the student throughout the challenge. So first of all, if we look at the first column, we've got crisis. So what is it that the young people experience? So in terms of staying connected, one of the big things for young people is that they're not able to communicate with their peers, teachers, family and friends in the usual manner. So, you know, where they might have been able to pop round to their friend's house and see them and have some time with them, they can't do that now. The same with family and friends. You know, when they want to speak to their grandma, it's probably going to have to be virtual rather than having that kind of face-to-face contact. So it's thinking about what kind of impact that's having on those young people in terms of that the inability to communicate in the way that they might previously have done. So the next thing to look at is the learning outcomes. So what's the knowledge, skills and behaviours that learners will develop? So as part of this particular challenge, they will learn to understand the importance of being able to use different communication media. So that idea that they can no longer just use what they've been used to. They'll have to think about using other things. So they might be using things like Zoom, they might be using WhatsApp. A lot of these they may well have used before, but they may not have used them with all of the different people in their groups that they're wanting to communicate with. So that leads us on to the next one, which is understanding the communication needs of others. And that's going to be really important for the students to understand that not everyone will be familiar or feel comfortable with all of the different particular things that can be used. So it may well be, you know, that if they're wanting to talk to grandparents, that something like Zoom may not be appropriate, or it may be that they will just have to help teach them how to use those. So thinking about what's the best kind of communication to work with individuals. Then next, being able to plan an activity that demonstrates using communication. So thinking about planning out that activity that shows how they can use communication, and then finally that they will be able to communicate effectively with others. So that will be a skill that's really going to actually help them beyond this crisis, and perhaps some of the skills they learn there will help them beyond this crisis as well. So the next one is the recovery. So within personal skills outcome, what are the actual signs of recovery that happen for the students? So young people, as part of this, are going to develop and adapt to new and different ways of communicating with others. And then the action that they will take, so what they're going to do to achieve this through community building, is they're going to organise and deliver a social interaction with a group of peers or friends. So let's move on to the next challenge here. So we're going to look now at challenge 3, which comes under problem solving. And under problem solving, there are 2 categories. There's thinking differently and respecting communities. So what I'm going to do on these next few ones is I'm just going to look at the crisis and the learning action. And you can look at these others in a little bit more detail, but I think they're the key things to be focusing on initially. So what's the crisis in terms of thinking differently? What is it that young people experience? So young people are unable to learn from home as their schools and teachers have different priorities, meaning that learning becomes stagnant and a poor experience for all. So that whole thing of that different kind of learning, not necessarily having the same priorities as one another, and actually having a poor experience, which is not a good thing. So what's the action that they can take to make this better and to actually help overcome this crisis? So what they can do is design and test a new learning method and report back on its success. And then they could well use this when schools return to normal. Let's have a look at the next challenge. This is challenge 5, which comes under the category of self-belief. Under this category, we have raising resilience and building confidence. So we're going to look at raising resilience first of all. So what is it in terms of the crisis? What is it that young people are experiencing? So they are being left to fend for themselves and don't have that usual structured support network. So suddenly, all those support networks that perhaps sometimes they might have complained about, without them, it becomes very difficult because they're having to cope themselves with that. And then what is it that they can do? What is it that we're going to ask them to try to do to help overcome that crisis? So we're going to ask them to plan, do and review a personal project or challenge that focuses on the need for resilience. Moving on to the next challenge, challenge 8, which comes under the teamwork category. And under teamwork, we have supporting others and strength in teams. And we're going to look at the supporting others challenge in this one. So crisis, what is the crisis that young people are experiencing? So young people feel that others do not understand their own personal experiences. So therefore, they're even less likely to understand the experiences of others. But if you don't understand what's happening to yourself, how are you going to understand how that's impacting on other people? So the learner action that we're asking the young people to take part in as part of this is they're going to develop a case study with 2 or more peers that shows the impact of the crisis on their own mental health, what has been done to overcome it, and then how others can do the same. So rather than it just being about what's happening to them, it's thinking about, right, how can we overcome it, and then moving beyond that and actually giving help to others. They can also help overcome it as well. And then finally, we're going to look at challenge 10, which is positive action, which comes under the self-management category. Within self-management, we have positive action, staying motivated. So let's have a look at the crisis in terms of the positive action. So young people see the erosion of their community. So with all of this that's happening, they really feel like the community has, is having issues, and that they can't be in a cohesive community in the same way that perhaps they were before. So the learner action for this is to submit a pledge to their school and to us as an awarding body that says how they're going to use their skills and behaviour for positive change in the future. So it's not just about how they're going to cope in this current crisis, it's taking it that step further and saying, let's learn from all of this, and moving forward, let's make sure that we have positive changes in the future and that impacts right through. So that's a little bit of a summary through some of the challenges and what kind of thing they look like. The next thing I'm going to look at is what the learner journey is like. Now, the learner journey will be, regardless of their learning environment, they will progress through 5 steps. And this journey can be engaged through home learning, which is online, or as Lucy said, you can also download a hard copy if students haven't got access to online. Or it could also be used as a school-based activity to use for the students of key workers and vulnerable individuals. So step 1, the introduction session, is all about setting the scene. Step 2 is where the students complete the 10 challenges, and as each challenge is completed, they achieve a virtual behaviour badge, and when all are completed, they can achieve the certificate, that they will eventually be receiving the particular certificate. So step 3 is about the future review of their developed skills, to let them think about the future and how they're going to progress into the future. Then step 4, once they've done all that, they will then achieve the Community Builder Award, which is recognised by a certificate that the tutor will release. So then the students receive that. Then step 5 is that they make a pledge about positive action for the community, and this involves how they will use up to 10 hours of volunteering to help build their community. So that might be things like perhaps helping with transition of year 6 to year 7 by some kind of buddy system. And once they've completed those 10 hours of community building, they will receive a recognition award for that community building. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you some examples. Sorry, I clicked twice there. Go back there. I'm going to show you some examples of what the learning resources look like. So these are the booklets that the students will access online, and there's sections of them that they complete online, or as I say, you can have a hard copy that you can print off for students to use. So at the start of the booklet, there's information where they put their learner name, their school name, their tutor name, etc. There's a little bit about the challenge. Before each challenge, there's a little bit about what the challenge is, a bit of a reflection on what life was like before the crisis in terms of this skill. So this is to do with communication on this one. And then a bit of reflection that now the crisis is happening, how that has impacted. Then we go through a bit of an introduction about the challenge, explaining what's going to be needed to complete the challenge, and then there's some sort of little exercises and thoughts about how things are. Then they start to also look at planning, and there's sections in where they complete their planning. Throughout the session, there will be different points where they will be reflecting on what's happening. They will learn skills through the different activities they take part in, and then there will be a final activity that they will participate in that is part of that challenge. So what's included as part of the programme? So you get the Home Learning Digital Session Workbook and a printable copy for those that are harder to reach or who can't access digital materials. You also get the CPD that Lucy mentioned earlier for tutors. And tutors don't have to complete the CPD, but it is there for you if you do want that. You will get the virtual student badges and the electronic certificate that you can release to students when you feel it's appropriate. And there's also going to be some delivery guidelines for tutors. So the cost for this is $499, and we have cut this right down to the minimum because we know that budgets are tight, we know that this is difficult times, so we've kept it to a bare minimum in terms of what we can charge for this. So $499 will give you the opportunity to offer that to as many students as you want across your organisation. Then let's just think a little bit as well about moving beyond when the crisis is over. We had already produced something that we call our personal skills programme. Now this programme is a whole school programme, so that's from year 7 right through, that looked at providing resources and support needed to help develop students' personal skills. Now we know that returning to school after the crisis is going to be more difficult for students, and actually the development of students' personal skills is going to be more important than ever to help them cope and to settle into that sort of normal kind of routine. So this personal skills programme, I think, actually becomes more pertinent than ever. So if the students have done the I Can, I Am award, then they could move on to looking at the personal skills programme. The idea of the skills programme is it matches those skills in the framework that we mentioned earlier, so that communication, teamwork, self-belief, problem solving and self-management. And the aim is to develop these skills and help students progress in character building and building resilience to challenges. So within the way that this is structured is that there are separate awards. We have 3 themes. We have the transition theme, the active citizenship theme, and the progression theme. The Pioneer Award sits within transition, Ambassador Award and Community Influencer Award sits within the active citizenship theme, and Skills Pathfinder Award and Skills Reflection Award sit under the progression theme. The idea is that the programme can be delivered as a whole programme or as the individual courses. It's about building and developing those skills and demonstrating the behaviours so that the students have that opportunity to really provide evidence for their progression whilst developing character and personal skills. Each award requires 10 hours for delivery. There are lots and lots of delivery models that you can do, and it's entirely up to you how you want to do that. We have been piloting this with a number of schools, and what they have found is that certainly what's been a really successful model is using something like a combination of tutor time and drop-down days. Another school have used a combination of tutor time and things like either citizenship lessons or PSHE lessons. But you can entirely do it however you want. They don't have to be done in 1-hour lessons. They can be done in sort of 20, 30-minute chunks if need be. So whatever works for you is fine. So what's included as part of that programme? Well, there will be feedback from the Pioneer Centres, and we are actually going to, in the autumn term, organise some kind of webinar whereby some of the Pioneer pilot schools will talk about their experience of delivering the programme and give some advice and support regarding that. What you get is you get certification for all students that are involved in it. You get delivery guidance and session plans for staff. You also get student-facing session plans that you can put on the board to use with the students. You will also get an evidence passport for the students to complete. And if you want to create an impact report to report back to governors or to have, if you have Ofsted in, or to report back to parents, we will give you some support to help create that kind of report. So that's that programme. So in terms of how this will work, along with the COVID-19 support package, you can do a combined package of the I Can I Am and the Personal Skills Programme, which will last you through until a full academic year, so it'll last you through until July 2021, and we're giving a reduced price for this of £1,799, and that will be for as many students as you want, doing as many of the awards and as many of the I Can I Am package as you want for students, for that reduced price of £1,799. Okay, so next steps. So what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to start looking at any questions that have arisen today, and we'll respond to those. If you would like to sign up, if after hearing today's session you think, actually, yes, I know, I definitely would like to sign up for this, if you click on the link that's on here, you can go to that link and sign up straight away for the programme. And you just basically on that look at whether you're wanting to do just the I Can I Am offer, or if you want to do the combined offer, you can. There's two options there. If you are somebody that's working in an organisation where you have like multiple site delivery, please do contact us to ask us about how that would work and how costing etc. works for that. Or if you just have any further questions, or there's anything further that you're unclear about, and I sometimes know that when you go and talk to other members of staff, questions arise, so please do feel free to email me directly, or you can email me and ask me to have a chat with you on the phone if that's something that's going to be better for you. So thank you very much for listening today. What I'm going to do now is to bring up the questions. If any of you do leave earlier than the end of the session, please do remember to go into the file option and to complete the survey there. So what I'm going to do now is just have a look at the questions that have arisen through here. So let's just see. Right, somebody here is asking and saying that we've spoken about it being for 14 to 18-year-olds, but can it be used for years 7 through to 9, the age 11 to 13-year-olds? Right, it has been written, you know, we were targeting those 14 to 18-year-olds because we think they're the most vulnerable group. They're the group who are going to have examinations and things and more concerns. But certainly we don't have a restriction on it being used for years 7 through to 9. What I would suggest, if you do want to use it with that year group, those year groups, is have a look at the materials and think about whether or not you think it's appropriate, and absolutely fine if you think it's going to work for your students. That's absolutely fine to use that. And then the next one, who marks the work? Jana's asked this. It isn't actually a case of marking the work. It's not about really producing something which is for assessment. The marking, you know, it's about the students experiencing something that's going to help them progress them through. It's not like a qualification in that kind of sense of the word. It's about having the students have that experience which is going to benefit them and help them move forward and move on. So actually what the tutor is doing is more just being there to facilitate and to have those students go through that kind of experience. Is there anything you want to add on that, Lucy?
Yeah, there is a final sheet that the young person completes, which is called My Community Builder Profile, and it is literally a one-sider that gets them to reflect on what they've learned throughout the 10 challenges, and also has what their pledge is moving forward. So we do ask for tutors look at that as a minimum, and it's completely up to them if they look at anything else. And once they're satisfied that they feel they've completed the challenges, they can then release an achievement certificate to them that says that they are a Community Builder Award, and that they've got that certificate. So yes, Maria's completely right. It's not assessment in a qualification format. This is about them completing the knowledge part and doing some of the activities and actually reflecting on that, and the tutors act as a facilitator and then check that they have completed the challenges through the final sheet, which is called the My Community Builder Profile. That is explained through all of the CPD and also explained in the quick guidance that has quick tutor guidance that is available once you purchase the package.
Great, thanks for that, Lucy. And then Kelly has asked, is there a programme for younger pupils, primary ages? Key Stage 1 and 2. Do you want to pick that up, Lucy?
Yeah, absolutely. At this point in time, there isn't. Main reason being is that we were very conscious that there has been a lot of provision for Key Stage 1 and 2 at this point. However, we are looking at developing something that will be available soon for those age groups. But they will probably be more around social distancing within primary schools and how to maintain that as a leader, probably in year 5 and 6 throughout the school, to actually support the school maintain social distancing, etc., which we think is going to be one of the bigger issues for that age group. So it's something that we will be working on. Obviously, it's only 6 weeks into this. I think we've got a marathon rather than a sprint, so that'll be something that we'll move in towards in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Thanks, Lucy. And then Jenna, you said this was a accredited award, but will you just put it on your CV rather than a qualification? Yeah, so it's accredited to us by an awarding body, which I think gives it some kind of kudos, but it is about really it's being something on a CV that a student can talk about that they have completed, and it shows actually, you know, the resilience and thinking and being able to plan and move forward. So it shows those really important skills that I think are wider skills that employers and colleges and further education places are definitely looking for.
Yeah, just on that, Maria, I think as well, it's actually about what they do with those skills moving forward. So the learning programme is really important, but actually when they implement them back into the community and do their volunteer hours, that will also obviously go onto their CV. And if they did move on to something like the personal skills programme, they would be able to develop those skills even further and show their progression and employment skills moving forward, and that can be obviously supplemented with qualifications also.
Okay, and then this next one is I work in a large high school, this is from Ellie, with 400 plus students per year group. Realistically, how would you recommend we target a specific cohort? What kind of students is this designed for? Do you want to pick that up, Lucy?
Yeah, and it completely depends on, I suppose, what your aim of your school is and how they are working. We have got a couple of schools that are actually making this available to every single one of their, whether they're doing it 13 to 18-year-olds, so they've got 800 students going through that moving forward. However, there are other schools that have decided that this could be for the lower achieving groups to get them re-engaged and to start them thinking about schoolwork. One of the biggest issues that we found is that the schools are actually struggling to get engaged with 100% of students. Majority of them are reporting 50%. So this is something that could engage them that they might not find as difficult without the teacher sitting there in front of them. So I think it's for you yourself as a tutor and also your leadership team to decide who do you want to focus it on, and then actually it could be the facilitation is around actually making contact with those individuals, and it probably takes a lot more time from making sure that you're calling them, making sure that you're keeping contact with them, so you might want to do it to a smaller group than every single person in each of the year groups.
Okay, Lucy, thanks for that. That's all of the questions that have appeared on the screen so far. So I would like to thank everyone for taking part in this. I really appreciate you taking part. If any questions do arise as you go away and talk about this or think about this, as I say, you have got my email direct there. So please do feel free to email me or just ask me to give you a call and we can have a chat to discuss things further. So thank you very much for attending. I hope you have a pleasant evening. Please do remember to click on file as you're leaving the session and to complete that survey. It's always helpful for us to know how things have gone, and it also gives you the opportunity to put your comments in there and to ask for requests for any particular materials and things. If any of you would like to have a bit of an understanding about what this actually looks like, we do have a sample that we can share with you. So if you do want to request that, again, you can put a note in that survey as you're completing it. So thank you very much for joining us, and hope you have a pleasant evening. Goodbye.